Hey, hope you're having an amazing day. So, in today's video, we actually have an interview with Daniel. Now, Daniel is someone who I've been working with since August to help him start his own lead generation agency. And basically, within his first 60-ish days, basically within his first 2 months, he was able to make $13,500 for his own lead generation agency. But the crazy part is I actually filmed the interview with him this morning, and at the time, he made $12,500. And right before I actually started recording this video, he actually messaged me and said another client actually closed, and he's now at 13,500 USD across his clients. I guess the first thing is if you could just kind of give a little bit more context to like even the viewers and stuff, right? Like kind of just introduce yourself, man.
Yeah, my name is Daniel. I've been in sales and marketing for a while, but never really took the leap towards actually building my own business or being really serious about it. And then I saw Jimmy on YouTube and really like what he had to say because a lot of what he says is actually what actually happens in the corporate world and actually what happens on the execution level. And he really outlined things in a way that made sense to me, and I wanted to at least both have a structure in place, but also a coach. So yeah, all together took the leap and joined the organization. But yeah, I've been in sales and marketing for a while. Did B2C, I switched over to B2B, selling debit and credit terminals door to door. Then from there, some software. And then joined a sales agency. From there, worked with different types of clients, supply chain, manufacturers. All around about SaaS, Internet of Things, marketing, all that type of stuff. And then switched over to software started working with a software agency, and then from there just found Jimmy.
100%, man. And it does sound like you do have a little bit of experience and stuff like that, right? Again, you do have like more of a sales and marketing background, especially that's what you did in your job, right? But I guess, man, tell me a little bit more about like kind of like your results that you've seen. Obviously, you started your own lead generation agency. What has been the results, right? I know you've signed, I think it's 3 clients now. How much money have you made in total, man?
Yeah, so I'm on track of since I launched my campaign. So I set them up in the beginning of September. I launched them mid-September. From mid-September to now, what is it? It's
October
October
2nd.
2nd, October 2nd. So that's 3 clients. That's 45, 3, 8, 12, 5, 12,500 USD overall, split amongst the 3 clients. And then yeah, like everything is going well. So yeah, no complaints over here.
100%, man. $12,500, and you started your campaign basically like 2.5 weeks ago, I think. And for you as well, right? Because of the way you're structuring these deals, you also have room for a ton of profit in the back end as well, right? Once you're getting your clients' results, you're gonna cook and make a lot of money, man. But that's great, man. When do you start your lead generation agency? I know you said you started the cold email campaigns middle of September. But when do you actually start? Like even like looking into this, deciding, like mentally deciding to start your lead
Yeah.
generation. What did that look
So
like?
like it's funny because like I try to like focus on like sexy businesses for like 2 years, and I was just like, oh, like solar panels, like this, that, like I'm gonna start my own recruitment agency. It's like I'm like everything that I was doing was against my own skill set. So like eventually like I came to the point I'm like, hey bro, like I'm like to myself, like I don't care. Like what am I good at? What can I do? And like where's my knowledge based in? It doesn't matter how attractive the business is, it more so matters where I can really provide value and have a meaningful conversation in. So that's where I actually decided more towards when I joined this community. I think it was August, I believe.
Yeah,
But then
August.
I only had like 6 emails set up. The volume wasn't good. I was like, oh, like I have replies, but like the volume isn't there. So literally, that's when September I'm like, like F it sort of thing. Let me just set up multiple like over 30, 36. Now I have 39 emails, and then send it out, right? And that's when I actually started seeing traffic, is because you'll never really be able to test your offer either with low volume, right? Because you never
Yeah,
know. You need a good sample size, right? So the larger sample size I had meant that I could improve a lot more quicker and get to the point of generating these results. But yeah, so I think the deliverables of higher volume, it was really the key. Because I actually didn't know how many emails I would have to send out, but like that, you're like you had to set up 45 emails. I'm like, 39. I'm like,
hundred percent,
I'll go. Yeah, so
100%. Because I also think right, and the biggest problem most people have if they are like at zero or they're starting out or like the biggest problem people have going from 0 to 10K really is traffic. Really, like no one knows who they are, right? Like for example, when you were sending, I don't know, let's call it 100 emails a day. Let's to
Yeah.
keep number, right? That's only 100 people, and in the grand scheme of things, because it's kind of like a funnel, where just because you reach out to 100 people, maybe only one or two of them will actually be somewhat interested, and then from that one or two people, probably one of them is not even that serious. They have other things going on, and that equals to zero, right? But if you're able to 10x that volume at the top, where now you're reaching out to let's call it 1,000 people a day, right? You might get 50 to 100 people who are interested. From that 50 to 100, maybe like 10 to 20 of them are seriously interested. They're open to having a conversation. They jump onto a sales call. You have that conversation, and maybe at the end of it all, two or three of them are like, all right, sure, let's do this. I want to implement this right now. Let's get started. How much does this cost? Let's get going, right? So I think the biggest issue that a lot of people have is just not enough people know who they are at the top. But with that being said, you also need to be strategic, because it's not a like volume is king in sales and anything sales. But at the same time, you also need to make sure you're doing the right things as well, right? Because if you're just mass spamming a million emails, you're also not going to get results, right?
Yeah, and that's where like yeah, just doing the same thing over and over again. I think we call it insanity, right? So like it's always just testing different offers, and the biggest thing was the VSLs, right? Because like it's very educational. It shows the actual process
Yeah,
in place. It's like and the one of the key things you use that we mentioned in the VSLs is like, hey, like what I'm doing right now and how you got to this video is exactly what I'll be doing for you, right? So like, you're seeing the proof of concept, you're watching this video, and I'll be doing the same for you, right? So like a lot of
same.
times in different agencies, like you see marketing agencies, they don't run their own Google ads to find them clients. I wonder why,
Yeah,
right? Like right. So like it's really that sort of thing. It's like the proof of concept is within the actual sales process and be like, I can replicate the sales process exactly for you. Right. And then those VSLs were the other portion of the key beyond like testing different offers.
100%. Yeah, no, that's a great point, because that's kind of what I realized too, right? Is because even before I started my own lead generation agency, I've tried some other stuff. Like I literally did the marketing agency stuff in your example, and I think the biggest issue that people can have is, for example, if I'm helping, I don't know, let's call it an e-commerce brand run Facebook ads. The problem is I'm not running Facebook ads myself to get clients. I might be doing like DM outreach or cold emails even, but I've never even opened up the Facebook ads manager, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing until I get the client. And it's very, very hard to sell because you literally don't have proof it works, right? You have no case studies, you have no client testimonials, which is normal when people are starting out. And when you're on a sales call, like these people are stupid and they ask you, so how does this work? You probably wouldn't even be able to explain it the right way because you don't know how to do it, right? But I think as a lead generation agency, one of the main, let's call it a benefit with this business model is it's simple in the sense where everything you're learning to get yourself a client, you're going through that process. You're sending cold emails for the first time. You're building your VSL for the first time. And once you dial that in, and you know you're dialing it in when you're starting to get results, when you're getting replies, you're getting sales calls, stuff like that, right? You're able to refer back to it. And on the sales call, when the business owner asks you about it, you're literally like, oh yeah, I literally did this myself. It took me 3 weeks to figure out how to write a good cold email. I tested that process myself, and now it's getting great results, and I'm able to do the exact same thing for you, right? But the key thing is I've actually done it and I know how it works, and you're able to use yourself even kind of like as a mini case study, right? But you're absolutely right, man.
Yeah. And I think the other part also, like we touched on this, but like I think people like try to focus on too many parts of what they're trying to do. Is like I have a friend who said, funny enough, he's like, I told him like, hey, focus on a specific niche, right, for your marketing agency. He's like, what if someone else comes to me? I'm like, say you'll do it. Like, but like that shouldn't be your target audience. Like anyone who has a business you can help. I mean, like that's not really plausible and doesn't resonate, especially
Yeah.
when you're starting out, don't have case studies, right? So versus,
Uh,
hey, like, you specifically do it for SaaS, you specifically do it for roofers or whatever, commercial like properties or
yeah.
whatever. Like, and when you mention it on their website, and then when you're sending these mass volumes and the offer is good, they're like, oh, like, what is this guy about? They try to find you on web and they go on your website. I was like, oh, like he's specifically for me, right? And then
Yeah.
that ask a lot less that and essentially leads to a lot less questions too, right? In terms of like referrals and stuff like that. It's like, who did you work with? It's like because now you're able to at least have a conversation dedicated to their industry and you make the effort of just learning about them and their industry, right? So like those sort of concerns, those sort of rebuttals don't really pop up, right? So
Yeah, exactly, right. It is a massive issue because a lot of people, I guess, when they're first starting out, right, they kind of just their attention is pulled in so many different ways that it makes it hard for them to focus on one thing. But that one thing that they need to focus on is the thing that will get them the results, right? So by being able to focus on one type of industry, one niche, one specific service, they're able to like go all in and spend the time in order to actually research it and get really good. And even to your point, right, when you're sending that many emails, you're not spamming people, right? You need to be relevant. Like whatever you're talking about in your cold email, in your VSL, it needs to be relevant towards the person who's watching that or reading that. Uh, and yeah, that's one of the largest mistakes, to be honest, right? And it's good that you figured that out, man. But tell me a little bit more about like even before you started your lead generation agency. You mentioned that you tried like solar and some other stuff, right? Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, have you ever tried like other business models as well?
Yeah, I try to get commission on solar. So like I spent some money on getting a guy who would set up solar appointments, and then I realized that like blue collar businesses are maybe not the best, not the most truthful either. Because like I would set up appointments for the guy, and he said, oh, like nothing happened. I would call. I'm just like, let me just call the client up, right? Like, let's see the housing,
Yeah,
right? Let's see what happens. Yeah, like I'm getting something installed like next week. I'm like, oh, really? Oh, that's true. I called the guy. I'm like, hey, like this is happening. He's like, yeah, yeah, but it wasn't agreed. Like, it wasn't roof solar. It was a front lawn solar. I'm like, bro, like solar, solar. Like, just
yeah,
what do you mean, right? So like, there's different models I tried like that. Hiring VAs for appointment setting. Um, trying to get working with a guy who does list building from Bangladesh. And stuff like that. So like, tried a bunch of different things that seemed like interesting on paper, but again, like it didn't really make sense because like it was like either a portion of my skill set or like a completely different some industry that I had no understanding of, right? And like so like those are different models I tried. Again, and those models I tried were again like low risk because it was all through cold calling, right? So
yeah,
like I didn't spend too much on it because I'm like, at least let me have conversations to see what happens before I spend more on it. But like this I felt really comfortable with. I'm like, hey, like I'm focused on something I know I can do. I'm focused on an industry I have knowledge about, and I've done this type of things like to a degree in the past, not to this level, right? But
yeah.
like at least this has refined that process for me.
100%, man. 100%. I completely agree. It's there's as the saying, there's a million ways to make $1 million, right? But every single person has a unique set of skills and a set of experiences that will make certain business models easier and way better a fit for them as an individual, right? Uh, but tell me a little bit more, right? Obviously, when you found me, you mentioned that you found me on YouTube, right? And then you probably watched through some of my YouTube videos, talk about lead generation agency. And obviously, there's like a lot of different people selling different things online, right? There's a bunch of people selling courses, mentorships, programs, stuff like that. Obviously, I have like even this program that you're in right now. Did you have like potentially like even any doubts before even like working with me? Like, what did that kind of look like?
Yeah, I think the biggest doubt was more so like I asked Jake, I'm like, hey, like how involved is Jimmy in the actual process? Like how often can we actually talk to him and get his insights on certain matters? And I'm like, hey, like, could you like show me how the course looks like? So, Jake shared his screen and stuff. And then he showed me something on the infrastructure because I was choosing between Smart Lead and Instantly or trying to decide because I had
Yeah,
this Instantly set up before. And then it just showed Smart Lead, and I was like looking at Smart Lead the night before I talked to Jake. I'm like, oh, like I'm gonna switch to Smart Lead. I'm like this, like it's already providing that sort of information
yeah,
to me. So that was a huge green flag for me. I'm like, oh, like I told even Jake, I'm like, hey, like this infrastructure is already there for me, right? I don't have to like go online and look around what's the best thing, right? Currently
yeah.
that people are doing. Jimmy has already trailblazed that, right? So I don't have to spend time on that. The other thing I'm like, hey, how involved is Jimmy in the process? So those were the two biggest things was the infrastructure and your involvement, and both of them checked out, right? So those were my biggest doubts initially, but it worked.
100%, man. And I guess obviously you joined the program. We started working together pretty closely too, right? One on one and stuff like that. What would you say have been your overall experience working with me, working with Inbox Lab, working with Jake, who's my salesperson? What has been your overall experience, right? Like, I guess if you could go back to when you first started and you asked this version of you and be like, hey, so what's the experience working with Jimmy? What would you kind of say?
I would say like again, I'm just gonna be honest, like this is not a magic bullet, right? Like this
Yeah,
is not, right? Like as much as you're able to help, if they don't want to help themselves, good luck. Right? That's really with anything, right? You can talk to a therapist if you don't do the actual work or try to figure it out on your own too. Like it's a lot more harder because then you're just relying on one person to take you to the end, and that's never how business works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The reliance comes from yourself, right? So like that's the biggest thing I would say to someone who's trying to join is like, hey, if you think this is gonna make you a millionaire by in next year,
Not gonna happen.
maybe maybe it can happen, right? But like you really have to take that accountability into perspective, right? I think sometimes people look at these type of communities and these type of process these systems and like, hey, like, as long as someone's there to guide me, I can get there, which I think is correct to a degree. But I'm like, hey, like you have to be there for yourself
Yeah,
first and foremost, right? That should be the first thing. You be there, and then Jimmy and the community, everyone is a support. You are the main character essentially. But
100%, man. Yeah, no, it's kind of like, I think a really good example to even what you said. It's kind of like if I wanted to get really good at basketball, I could go out and hire like former NBA players. I could go out hire NBA level trainers, and they could tell me like, oh, what's the best like shooting form? What's the best way to like dribble the ball? But at the end of the day, if I'm not like at the gym actually practicing these drills, actually practicing my shot, it's not going to make a difference, right? But obviously, if I'm able, if I'm dedicated, I'm committed, and I'm able to put in the work in order to improve myself, pair that up with the support system with like those former NBA players, NBA level trainers, the improvement, like you're just gonna improve so much quicker, like 10x quicker. But obviously, it starts with the individual, and that person actually has to be willing to do the work. They have to believe it's possible, and they have to be willing to just stick it out, right? And understand that good things take time. And again, like you said, you're not gonna become a like you're not gonna become a millionaire overnight, right? And there's a process involved to do that, like a very specific step-by-step process, right? So I love that, man. What would you say is, if you were to summarize it, what would you say are the three most valuable aspects, like tangible, valuable things that you are able to take away from working with me? Is it like the community? Is it, it's probably not the info because you could probably find a lot of that stuff online, right? But is it a community, the one-on-one support, like jumping on these calls? What does that kind of look like?
I would say it's honestly the biggest thing was the coaching. You being there, I messaged you on the weekends and shit. So and you're
Yeah,
like, hey yo, what up, sort of thing. So like really the coaching, you being there for the team. The community is also really nice because like when someone gets a win, it just motivates you for the day. So when I initially joined, I was like actually just going through all everyone's wins and just like it was like so hype, right? Like just looking at like,
yeah,
oh, this person made this much, this much. I'm like, oh, like this is so nice, right? And it just takes that type of mindset, right? Because like I think the other part, which we should probably get into, is also like um, the mindset is really needs to be like not based on envy, it needs to be based on like self improvement, right? Because like if you see
yeah,
someone else doing it, it should motivate you to become better, right? Versus hey, like why haven't I gotten there if they have gotten there? That's not correct. It's like if they have gotten there, I wonder how they have gotten there. I want to ask them how they got there, so I can do this for myself and sort of be motivated by their journey versus be like sad that about their journey, right? So I think that part of the community is like everyone has that sort of mindset for the most part that I've talked to is like they're motivated by each other, right? They're not like, hey,
100%.
like if someone's success doesn't make someone else feel bad. It should make you feel good because they're part of the same community as you, right? So I would really say the coaching, the community, and like also the mindset, right? So
Exactly, man. And I think that's just more of a mindset that it's kind of strange because a lot of people, right, when they see other people, like strangers, basically seeing success, there's two types of people, right? The first type is like, oh yeah, this person made 10 grand and they scammed their way there. They did some like slimy stuff to make that 10K. They took a shortcut to get there, right? That's what probably 80% of people just in general, like that's the mindset they have. But there's the other, maybe like 20% of people who look at those people, they have an open mind, and maybe that person did scam their way there or take a shortcut, who knows, right? But they have that open mindset to learn more about, okay, this person did this. How did they do it? What was like kind of like that process behind that? What were they struggling with? Stuff like that. And if it is legitimate, which is pretty easy to figure out relatively quickly, right? What did they do and how can I replicate some of their success and bring it into my life so that I can start seeing some success, right? And using it as motivation. If this person can do it, I probably can too if I'm doing similar things, if I'm executing on the right things every single day, right? So I completely agree, right? Because there's a lot of people here on the internet. Like, even for example, right? Like, even for my social media pages, right? I'm running some ads, and every single day I just get like hate comments and stuff like that, and I'm just like, come on, man, right? But it's it is what it is. It's just a part of the process, right? Um, yeah, man. So obviously now you have three clients. You made $12,000. If you could go back to the Daniel from even a month and a half ago, and you were giving him specific, tangible, let's call it advice, right? That would really expedite the process. What would you kind of say there?
So there's two perspectives on this, right? Because like the one is I wouldn't change anything because who knows what the outcome would have been today.
Yeah,
But like let's beyond that point, I would have said start sooner, right? I think increase volume sooner, trust the process, and just get it like just go into it, right? So that's the biggest thing I would say. It's like sometimes people are afraid to spend like as much as we do on mailboxes,
yeah,
but it's really just that we have to do it, and it does show that results, right? Like, as long as the infrastructure is correct and you're following the steps, like it's hard not to get results at a certain point, especially when you're testing different offers, right? So like it's a volumes game, and I would have told myself like, hey, just start earlier, trust yourself and trust in the process, trust the community, trust Jimmy, that everything will work. Right? So
100%, man. In a way, I kind of wish I started sooner too. But no, I know what you mean, right? Because it's like if I go back and I tell that version of Jimmy from like 2 years ago, maybe it would have like messed everything up, and I'll
yeah,
be
right.
like, I'll be in a worse position than I am right now, right? So I know you mean, right? Like I wouldn't go back to change anything, but um, if I could, I would have started way sooner, right? And probably be making way more money now as well, right? But I completely get it, man. And I guess the final question, I don't want to like bombard you and stuff like that, right? To anyone who might be kind of on the fence of starting their lead generation agency or on the fence of working with me to help them start their agency and grow this business, what would you kind of say to those people who are seriously thinking about it and just on the fence?
If you're seriously thinking about it, I would say like it's either now or never sort of thing. Because like if you don't do it now, will you do it later? Chances are probably not. You'll probably forget about it. And like also you don't pre-qualify yourself, right? It's like what skill set do you have, right? Like um
Yeah,
right? So as much as it is like, hey, like I would like to say this is the greatest thing ever, but like it really also depends on the individual. Like, are you in a place where you can make those type of jumps, right? Can you actually like work on this properly? Can you actually devote the time? What are your habits like, right? And like
yeah,
even if your habits are bad, you can get into this program and just start working like a madman, right? Sort of thing.
yeah,
But like if you're on the fence, like I would say just join. Especially if you do have the skill set, do you have like the qualifications that we've been talking about thus far, right? Um,
yeah.
there's no better community I would say thus far. And I joined another community previously, like a sales community. So yeah, that's the other thing. I spent like 3 grand like a year ago on like another community, and it wasn't good because it was just more getting people to sign up with coaches, and I coaches that don't necessarily run their own business, right?
Yeah,
That's where like it gets like it's like a professor trying to teach you about like how to run a business, and they're like, have you run a business? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, right? Versus you're a coach and you also run your own agency, right? In a way. So like a coach in a way, but like more of a business owner than a coach, right? And I
yeah,
that's what I wanted. I'm like, hey, if Jimmy does actually what he preaches, then like that's more proof into it, right? So like I think a lot of people join certain programs just based on the charisma of the individual versus the actual practicality. And you are a practitioner first, so that's the biggest thing. It's like if you're on the fence, just talk to Jake, just talk to the team, and see if we preach what we say, right? So that's the biggest thing.
100%, man. And I think even to your other point, right? I think there's just so many like different like courses and stuff like out there now, right? And I think the the thing that a lot like not to bash or anything, right? But I think the number because I've joined so many courses and a lot of them are really, really bad and kind of a waste of money, right? Is there's not really accountability, right? Like it's like, okay, you join the program, you pay whether it's $500, $1,000, $3,000, 5 grand. I paid as much as 15 grand, right? But you join some of those programs and you just don't get the feeling that they actually care that much, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, just watch this video and call it a day, do it yourself. And then when you do have questions, you're not really getting directly to the answers. They're not really supporting you. Had almost no like courses I've ever taken where I was able to jump on like one-on-one calls with the guy who actually teaches the stuff, right? He's always like, talk to this person, talk to that other person, send me a message, right? And I think just being able to find someone who is who's doing what you're doing, in a successful level, a couple steps ahead, and being able to get direct access to that person is probably the biggest thing I even look for now if I was trying to join like some form of like course or program or mentorship, right? But I completely agree with you, man.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, so I think like I think we even seen in like sports, right? Like coaches that haven't played the game like aren't the most successful. There's obviously exceptions, but I'm not going to base my life on exceptions. I'm going to base it on probability. Most of the coaches
Yeah,
that are successful in leading their team to the championships have played the game,
yeah.
right, at a high level. So that's it.
Yeah, 100%, man. Completely agree, man. But appreciate the time today, man. And it was a good conversation. Do you have any, I guess, final words? I don't know if that's the right word, but any final comments, things like that before we call it a day?
No, not really. I don't have really final words or anything like that. But I think
Yeah,
again, to those people who are taking some time or contemplating of whether they should join or not, again, it doesn't hurt to actually hop on a call and ask those questions that we talked about, see the process, see how the community looks like. Because at the end of the day, like, it's your life is in your hands, right? And if you think this is something for you, it could be or it could not be, but you'll never know until you have that conversation, right?
100%, man. Final thing, right? Just to clarify too, right? Because obviously, you're saying really good things, right? I'm not paying you for this, right? Like, like
No,
I'm
no,
not
no.
a paid actor. You're not doing all this stuff, right?
No, no, no. I'm not a paid actor. You guys can find me on LinkedIn if you want. I don't know. It's Daniel. I don't know. Put my plug in for LinkedIn. That'd be hilarious. But yeah, like if they can find me, I'm all over the web in terms of like LinkedIn and stuff. So like, I don't get paid for anything like this. I just joined this community because I just wanted to start my own legion. I tried a bunch of random things in the past, and you know, Inbox Up just suits my skill set of what I've been doing for the last years, right? So that's it.
100%, man. But yeah, no, appreciate your time today. Thank you for your time. So hope you enjoyed this video today I filmed with Daniel. Again, similar to what Daniel said, right? If you watch through this video and you kind of resonate with some of his points, you're someone who is ambitious. You're committed to the process. You want to build a business and you're ready to actually take action, right? You're someone who wants to really succeed and you have what it takes to do this and you want to work with me to start your own lead generation agency and scale to $10,000 per month in the next 90 days, then the first link in the description below is a link to set up a time to chat with me or someone with my team to chat about how I can help you start your own lead generation agency and scale it. But that's basically it. Hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure you drop me a subscribe. Make sure you drop me some of your comments, the fire emoji, I don't know, whatever you want. And I'll see you in the next one. See ya.